Hi, I'm Christina Rodenbeck from the Oxford Astrologer, and I'm here with my friend and colleague and interlocutor, Sally Kirkman from sallykirkman.com. Hello, Sally.
Hello, Christina. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you're looking very perky and sort of rusty red.
Rusty red. Yes, it's a rusty red morning. You're looking very pink.
Yeah, comme toujours. Um, yes, La Vie en Rose over here. Yeah, or maybe not. That's a sort of code for living the for a nightlife, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about the month ahead, Sal, and the month behind,
Yeah.
and some stuff in between. How have you been? How is your month? The month of February, Aquarius season. How
Yeah.
was that?
Yeah. It was actually, it was very social.
Mm.
I live on my own, but I've hardly been on my own because my daughter's been coming and going here. I've had friends staying. And I've had kind of quite a few friends have needed my friendship more
Mm.
so than usual, perhaps. So yeah, it has been that for me when I was thinking about what's been going on. It's been quite busy, social, and friends been really important, really important. So that's kind of the main theme of it. And I'm actually, and I do wonder whether this is going to happen in Pisces season, but I'd kind of like to slow down a little and have a bit of calm, have more time for creativity, some spiritual meditation, maybe. So yeah. So let's see if it brings a shift, Pisces season. Not sure. How about you?
I was just going to say, I think that's quite interesting because you're a Mars person, and Mars has been retrograde.
Yeah.
And so instead of like just lying, being flattened by Mars retrograde, you've just been rather jolly. You've been able to relax.
Yes, I have. Although I do kind of the Mars retrograde feels like I haven't been able to get things moving in certain areas. One of the things I want to do this year is to look to buy because I rent at the moment. And I was thinking, well, I'll do that in 2025. Have I done it yet? No, I haven't had time for that. So, and with the Mars retrograde in Cancer, homes and families, and with my Aries ascendant, definitely homes and families, it kind of feels there's been that block there. There's been an obstacle to it. So, as a good astrologer, I'm waiting for Mars to turn direct and then let's see where we're at. Will that bring some forward motion? So I can see that it's Mars retrograde they've been I've been halted in certain areas and other areas of life that have kind of taken over or dominated.
Yeah, do you know, I would also just say that Mars retrograde for you is the return home of your daughter.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
return home. And we've seen a lot of returns home. I heard hers was
Mm.
warm rather than
And safe.
devastated and
Warm and
safe.
safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm just thinking about all those Gazans going home and all those
Yeah.
people from Los Angeles going home who've had sort of Mars rip through,
Mm.
they've had the fire and then they come back to, and they're returning home. So I think that was a really strong theme, actually, the return home in this
Yeah.
Mars retrograde. And actually, oddly enough, my daughter has been off doing this ski season in the French Alps. Um, Her visa was they couldn't renew her visa, which
Mm.
again is quite Mars retrograde. The thing didn't happen.
Yeah.
So she will be actually returning home
Yeah.
also during this Mars
Mm.
retrograde before it goes direct on the 24th of February.
Mm.
Um, so there's something about rebounds, I think,
Yeah.
or boomerangs with that Mars retrograde. And of course, we're going into a huge boomerang time. Yeah,
Mm.
I have to say, um, I'm trying to ration my news consumption. Let's put it like that.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
Um, because finding it, I thought it would be bad, revolutionary, the new US government, because of the combination of Pluto and the sun on the at zero Aquarius at the inauguration.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, this what they are doing is appalling to me.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I'm trying to sort of ration it so that I don't get overwhelmed by the detail,
Mm,
and try and keep the bigger picture
yeah.
in
Yeah.
mind. And also, I find that I'm interested that, so, the outer planets are kind of rushing ahead. So there's this feeling of things rushing ahead, where, but the inner planets are slowing down, about to turn retrograde. So Venus and Mercury are about to turn retrograde. Mars
Mm,
is actually retrograde. There's a very strange disjuncture at the moment,
mm,
with one part of one's life going very slowly, and these other things going incredibly fast.
yeah.
These
Yeah. Yeah.
incredibly rapid
Yeah, and
changes.
I wonder, it's almost like the inner planets, which are more personal, saying, just hang on a minute.
Yeah,
What the F,
yeah,
hang
yeah,
on. Hang on. We've got to do this slowly and methodically and take our foot off the pedal.
mm,
It does feel like that, doesn't it? Very much
yeah,
so. And there's really these personal planets, Mars, Mercury, Venus. I mean, they're really retrograde until mid-April, aren't they? There's not much time without a retrograde planet, one of the personal ones. So, I think for each of us, it's kind of important to think, to slow down, particularly when we see the world speeding up and going mad because of the speed of doing things. And it feels some crazy decisions taking place in that.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that happened in early February and of January was the turning direct of both Uranus and Jupiter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that felt like a big swoosh of this energy,
Mm,
of this
mm,
powerful direct energy. And Jupiter Gemini, I will defend it to the hilts, because I was actually born with Jupiter in Gemini.
I know.
Um, so we love the information, right, guys?
Yeah.
Jupiter Gemini people. We love to get it and we like to disseminate it, but there is a wall of this trivia that does come at us, of
Mm,
news, of facts, and it's very hard to dissect one from the other. Um, I've been thinking a
mm,
lot about, during the past month, and having a lot of conversations around AI, which I find
mm,
quite interesting, that suddenly started to absolutely penetrate, and talking to people who are actually using it, and very successfully, and using it in a very creative way,
yeah.
as a sort of interlocutor, to use that word again, as
Mm,
something to bounce ideas off of.
mm,
And I think that's quite interesting, because obviously we all think that, the Pluto in Aquarius is probably, AI is one of the many manifestations of that.
yeah.
But so is the Uranus in Taurus going direct now. So, people have been working on making this AI the whole time that Uranus has been in Taurus.
Mm,
Now Uranus goes direct. It's moving
mm,
rapidly now to exit Taurus, at least for a little while, towards Gemini. When
yeah.
Uranus gets in Gemini, wow, that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but that, sort of, the Uranus is about many things, but it is also about electricity and connections, and it's got this whole Aquarian feel to it. And it's in Taurus, so it's practical. It's these things actually happening. It's not people just talking about the stuff. It's actually
Mm,
making the stuff that works.
mm,
Um, so, I've been taking recommendations from people. And last night in my salon, someone was mentioning Claude. A lot of people said that they're using Claude. I did a comparison between DeepSeek and ChatGPT,
mm-hmm,
and I thought that DeepSeek was quite a lot better, actually, as the
mm,
Chinese one, because it says it doesn't know stuff when it doesn't know stuff, whereas
mm,
ChatGPT just makes it up if it doesn't know,
mm.
and says it very confidently.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, so I've been thinking a lot about AI, and that was an Aquarian thing to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah. And I was going to just say, I mean, I mean, I've been using it more,
mm, mm,
particularly for ideas. Um, like if you're needing marketing ideas and stuff, it's great for that. It just gets things moving because it gives you all these different possibilities. I was probably using it quite a lot when that Uranus turned direct and Jupiter turned direct in Gemini. So I think it is something for all of us to kind of, not be there's this fear around it, isn't there? But to be using it. I mean, use it in a way. It's like anything. You need to. New technologies can be good. I'm never the first with a new technology, but yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really kind of quite a positive force in some ways moving forward. And
Oh,
we're moving into this massive air era, aren't we? Gemini and Aquarius are going to be, they've got the big planets in there really getting things excited and moving.
so you could say that the Uranus and Taurus is how are we going to apply it? Taurus is about applying things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like applied AI actually in reality. And it turns
Mm,
out that it's very different, really, from what seems to me it's quite different from what people have been saying, which is that, oh, we're going to have AI art or AI novels written or whatever. Not at all. People don't use it for that. They use it to have their own stuff, to talk
mm,
about their own stuff. Yeah, I think that it could be, as someone was saying to me, that it makes us able to do more of our human-y tasks and fewer of the repetitive ones.
mm-hmm, mm,
So like obviously people who are, I hate to say it, but accountants and conveyancers and those white collar jobs that are going to go,
yeah.
um, which are actually quite repetitive.
Mm,
Um, as well as and that I think that's part of the fear, isn't it? Is that these sort of middly jobs are going to go, but that is going to free people up and jobs that actually need to be done by humans. So this idea of a psychotherapist, uh, AI psychotherapy, I don't think that's very useful actually,
mm,
because the whole point about something like therapy is the interaction between the client and the person, is that space that's
yeah,
created.
yeah,
Um, but AI will be able to take the notes
yeah.
and bring and tell you what happened in the conversation and then structure it and give you the bullet
Mm,
points.
mm.
And I mean, it already does that on, is it Teams? You can use that.
Yeah,
Um,
this kind of I saw kind of in the world of astrology, bringing it back to us. I saw people who use AI to record it, take notes of it, of a consultation. But the same, I don't fear it for astrology because what we do in readings is so different. AI can't do what we do in readings.
no,
No
and
chance.
actually, it can't do predictions either. I mean, it can't even read the ephemeris yet. So there
Mm,
you go.
mm, mm,
So it can't even do a month ahead accurately.
yeah,
It can scrape bits from previous horoscopes.
yeah,
That's all it can do. It can only do
yeah.
what's been done, which is
Mm,
quite an important way to think about it. So it's good for the
mm,
past, but not actually that good for the future, which is
mm, mm,
interesting.
yeah.
So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think that's a very Aquarius season thing to be thinking about and
Mm,
noticing that suddenly so many people I know are using it in various ways. It used to be just the software engineers,
mm.
but now it's also creatives have found creative ways to use it.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And I think it's not just we're not. It's Aquarius season. You're kind of getting informed about it more, finding out more about it. But it's going to be so important moving forward, isn't it? Because of the outer planets moving into the air signs. So shall we launch into Pisces season, my dear? And being a Pisces yourself, it's happy birthday time coming up.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to Pisces season with this?
Uh, well, it's a pretty overwhelming Pisces season this year, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like everything is piling in. There are these crazy retrogrades.
Mm,
It's actually everything's square Jupiter. I always enjoy Pisces season.
mm,
Because I also have an overwhelmingly Piscean chart. It's not just like my sun there, it's like everything.
yeah.
So for me, it's just swimming in my own waters quite happily. So I am looking forward to it. I can't remember what I'm doing. I think I'm going up to Scotland actually for part
Oh,
of Pisces
nice.
season. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I am looking forward to it. I'm just finding the world so fascinating at the moment.
Mm,
And
mm,
when watching how things unfold, so
mm.
interesting. And there's so much astrology coming up in this Pisces season. So, we've got an eclipse, we've got Mercury going retrograde, we've got Venus going retrograde, we've got Mars going direct. Those are just the big things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, do we want to leap into the astrology as there's so much going on?
yeah, I think we should. I mean, we know Pisces is the most wonderful sign.
We do. It's the last sign. It carries a little bit of wisdom and all the other signs, skills, talents, gifts within it. I would say, Christina.
If only that were true. I have never, yeah, if only that were true. I do think that Pisces, the thing about Pisces can be boundlessness.
Mm,
And I also think there are very shallow Pisces and very deep Pisces. It can go both
correct.
ways. I mean, I know I always mention him, but I do occasionally like to mention Rupert Murdoch as a Pisces. Never forget that.
Yeah.
That's someone who has no boundaries at all around owning media. And Pisces is about the kind of group feel, the collective feeling, whatever that is, good, bad, whatever. And of course, the fact that Rupert Murdoch owns News International and Fox News and all that stuff, that's all about feelings.
Yeah.
He's turned newspapers into big feely wheely things.
Yeah.
You're not actually reporting the news, you're reporting feelings.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's super emotional, isn't it? Pisces. I mean, one of the water signs ruled by Jupiter, the biggest planet, is traditional ruler, Neptune, god of the sea. I mean, it's like this tidal wave of emotion, Pisces. I find them very cosmic. Cosmic's a word. Interesting. At its best, Pisces, cosmic, interested, real creative. There's often a connection to creative source or the spiritual source. And the flip side, because it's one of the mutable signs, so there's often this flip side, is they can be shady. They can lead you astray. They're great at kind of fooling you. And you think, everything's swimming along nicely. And then suddenly, oh, we're going down this path, this river. This river's taking us another way. So they do have that shady side to them. Some of them. I mean, it's like with any astrology sign, it's do you kind of pay attention to the positive side of your nature, or do you go down the slippery side? So yeah, it's a lovely sign though, I think, Pisces.
I think so. I mean, I think you have to cultivate, as a Pisces, I would say, consciously cultivate your emotional intelligence, your connection to the mystic, because I think it's the most mystic sign.
Yes.
We live in the mystic. And your connection to beauty. Actually, Venus is exalted in this sign. And consciously shy away from that manipulative thing, or consciously bound yourself. Do not go in that direction, because you'll end up running a media empire and and misleading many people.
Yes.
That oh gosh, where's my media empire? No.
Yes, start one.
I better start one quick.
This month.
But seriously, it is a dual sign. And when you have a dual sign, same with Gemini, for example, you need to consciously lean in to the light side of that. And think about yourself as the dual natured person, rather than thinking of yourself as this like perfect whatever it is. You really aren't. You're both light. You contain the shadow and the light in Pisces and in Jupiter. And in Gemini particularly, I think.
Yeah. And have humility within that.
Yes.
As well. Have humility within that. I mean, it is going to be, we've got Mars turning direct in Cancer, haven't we, on the 24th, which is one of the first things. I mean, the Sun moves into Pisces on the 19th. It goes in 18th, actually, this month. And then the Mars turns direct in Cancer, and then a new moon in Pisces on February the 28th. So it does feel like we're going into that world of sensitivity, emotions, straight away as soon as, we dive into Pisces season. And it's already been there as well, hasn't it? We're already floating in Pisces world, Pisces realm. because Neptune's in Pisces and it's been conjunct the North Node, as we were talking about previously. So we're getting that sense of this overwhelm of Pisces coming in, and it's just going to get magnified, I think, this Pisces season,
I
the
agree.
emotional realm.
And Venus was there most of the last month. So
yes, it was.
And she will be going back again. So all the other reason to sort of talk a lot about Pisces is that, not only are we going to have Pisces season goes on a long time this year.
Yeah, it does.
And as Neptune and Saturn, both of which have been in Pisces for Neptune for a long time, as they leave Pisces, sometimes planets kind of intensify as they're making their exit. They're more Pisces as they get to the end of Pisces. So there's a lot of fishiness around, and fishiness is both, it can be confusing. It's the glamour. Glamour is a Piscean thing in the fairy sense of confusing people with glamour, but also literally in the glamorous sense. I think, when are the Oscars this year?
They're on March the 2nd. They're in Pisces season, as they should be.
As they should be.
Yes.
Hollywood, take note. Enough of this, let's have it in Aquarius season or Aries season. No, Pisces season. So I'm expecting incredibly tearful and glamorous Oscars. Actually, are you making predictions this year, Sal?
I will be doing, but I haven't as yet. So I've not dived into that yet. It's kind of like, it is a diving in as well. There's a lot to look at, but I do enjoy doing that actually.
I have seen some of them, some of the contenders this year. I saw A Real Pain, which I really loved. I recommend that a lot. It's Jesse Eisenberg. And I saw The Brutalist, which I really thought, oh gosh, here's another huge movie about a man, which goes on for hours. And is sort of supposedly, it's like a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece. I didn't think so. I thought it was a big dumb movie. But there you go, la la.
La la.
Yeah, The Brutalist, big dumb movie. You're not allowed to think that. I'm sure it'll win like a zillion Oscars, like Oppenheimer, another big dumb movie in my opinion.
We shall see. So shall we have a look, get the new moon up?
Yeah.
Let's dive in, because there's so much to talk about, isn't there, really?
See, one of the things about this new moon is that you can see that it's quite, it's in this Pisces grouping, but it also squares Jupiter, doesn't it?
It does, very closely. Yeah, the sun and moon are at 9 degrees Pisces, Jupiter's at 12 Gemini. Jupiter's like kind of, let's just expand this. I mean, it does feel really, really expansive, this new moon. And the number, I mean, the Pisces, there's the sun, moon, Saturn, Mercury, the North Node, Neptune in Pisces. So it is, I mean, we're probably going to be talking about this a bit. There's this flood of energy in Pisces. So wherever Pisces falls in your chart, it's kind of, wow, what's going on there? What's pouring out? What's sort of pouring forth? I mean, it's this, you can't but help see what water represents, the themes of water. And we have been talking about floods as well. There are, flooding with Pisces. It's the sea, it's water, it's vast. There's a deluge of it. We've been sitting here in the UK in the rain, actually. I think it's kind of, it's getting really rainy.
And one thing I want to point out actually about that Jupiter, the Jupiter in Gemini, Mercury in Pisces, those two are in mutual reception.
Yeah.
So that means that this is all flowing, even that, the information is flowing, the ideas are flowing. It's actually an incredibly creative combination. It's fantastic for talking, for thinking, especially if you're a Gemini, actually, or if you're a Pisces, or Sagittarius, or Virgo. There's this amazing flow going on between those two.
It is. It feels kind of fertile. It feels fertile. It feels creative. So I think it is a really powerful time. You know, the new moon things are being seeded at the end of February and then moving into March. So it is, if you've got kind of creative things that you want to do, or if you've got kind of projects, if you want to explore your spiritual path. I mean, Pisces, Aries, a few of the star signs explore your spiritual path. It's like starting something new that is expansive on the creative and spiritual side with this flood of planets in Pisces.
Yeah, I actually, I know I always say this, but I have to say with the new moon, there's a lot of energy in Pisces, but not necessarily new things starting until afterwards, until the moon, the next day when the moon reaches Mercury. Um, and I think that's good for the moon to get past that Saturn. Also, I just want to add with the mutual reception is that starts on the 14th of February, the mutual reception between Mercury and Jupiter.
Yeah.
And it's always important to pay attention to these mutual receptions because, Jupiter supposedly is in fall, and is it fall or detriment?
In
Gemini.
fall, detriment.
And Mercury is in fall and detriment. It's supposed to be terrible in Pisces. But because they're in mutual reception, they're not, right? Yeah. Neither of these things are. They're actually functioning incredibly well.
Yeah.
So there can be as well as talking about this kind of wall of information that we're getting with Jupiter and Gemini, there's a certain amount of discrimination that probably is happening right now, because Jupiter is actually working so well with Mercury.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, I mean, and it's the mutable signs, isn't it? Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So it's these four signs that this could be quite an incredible month. It may feel at times that there's too much going on, too many ideas, too many people involved, too much information. So I think particularly for the mutable signs, it's going to be looking at how to harness that or how to focus it or how to streamline it in a way so things don't feel like they're getting out of hand or there's too much overwhelm. So, I don't know, learning good time management or finding a buddy to keep you accountable, doing things that help you stay on track. Because it's just so much information. Also, I think, potentially so much emotion too. This lineup of planets in Pisces feels very sensitive. There may be some relationships, and the water signs, Cancer and Scorpio as well. What are you dealing with that's quite sensitive, emotional? It might be around a child, someone close to you, and handling things delicately, carefully as well, if possible, with all this Pisces activity.
It's an undamming as well. Some things have been dammed up and there's an undamming that's coming.
Yeah.
As Saturn, in particular, Pisces moves direct.
Yeah.
And all this energy pushes against it, pushes past past Saturn during this month. So yes, the undamming and a kind of release of this watery energy. And I know we've said this before, we'll say it again, there will be floods. I know there have been floods in Australia already. Or drought. These two things, there's two opposite sides of the coin. And weirdly, Pisces is associated with oceans, but it's also associated with deserts.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It rules deserts as well. So it is both, isn't it? And also if you bring that to a personal level, it's probably a good time to check your plumbing.
Yeah.
The water that flows through your home, in and out of your home. Check that. I know we had where I live in Hastings, it could have been in Pisces season last year. Maybe it was when we were without water for 5 days. There was a problem. It ended up being on the mainstream news. And these bottles of water came flooding into Hastings and St. Leonard's, which kind of, it was millions of bottles of water. for people. So it's this sort of, there's an imbalance somewhere with the flow of water.
Yeah.
And it was quite literal. It was kind of quite literal for us. So yeah, and the Mars, this Mars turning direct as well. So it's direct by the new moon. It turns direct on the 24th. And Mars has been retrograde since December the 6th. It's been a long time, Mars retrograde. So if this has been important for you, and I think I was talking to a lot of kind of clients with these, some people caught up in conflicts or, real oppositions going on with Mars as it was opposite the Pluto. Can this be a time when you kind of move things forward now? You can get things going. You've learned a lot over the past few months. And with Mars turning direct, it's slowly picking up strength again. So maybe it is a time to be more assertive, more pushing things forward. And this is kind of interesting, I think, for the cardinal signs in Cancer, one of the cardinal signs. So Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer. What are you able to move forward again now that Mars is turning direct?
And Mars retrograde could have been quite conciliatory, or there may have been, peace talks. And now not so much, because we're going to have Mars direct and on the 2nd of March, Venus retrograde in the sign of Mars. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mars is really strong again, even though it's in Cancer, maybe not its strongest placement, but Venus is retrograde, Mars is direct. Things are again. So this is why this spring is so hard to predict. The ground keeps on shifting. He's on top, So, and the other thing about this current, the end of February astrology is that, Venus is going very slowly and Mercury is in its shadow already.
Yeah. And I mean, at the new moon, Venus is at 10 degrees Aries and she turns. I mean, February, of course, is such a short month, isn't it? This is the last day of February, 28th of February. Venus turns retrograde on March the 2nd. It's almost about to switch direction then. It does at 10 Aries. And then we'll go back and move back into Pisces. So, I mean, the Venus retrograde phase is March the 2nd till April the 13th. This flow again from Aries to Pisces. It's like the Venus and Mercury are kind of leading the way, aren't they, for the moves of Saturn and Neptune later this year, which go into Aries and then back into Pisces. There's something beginning now. We're already seeing what this is about. I mean, what do you think of Venus retrograde? They often say don't marry, don't have cosmetic surgery.
Oh, I would definitely
don't
agree
invest.
with that. I definitely agree with those things. I wouldn't marry under Venus retrograde, would you? I mean, no way.
I wouldn't choose it.
No, I mean, it makes it very easy when you're electing a time for a wedding. It's just not the Venus retrograde. I would never do that. I wouldn't buy any big items as well. But I might buy secondhand ones. It's like retrograde stuff. Think of like what's being thrown out. Or I might rescue things. Or, make something like, it's like a fixer-upper, Venus retrograde. No, I actually agree with all. I do think you'd be crazy to have cosmetic surgery under a Venus retrograde.
Yeah.
Unless possibly it was fixing one that had previously not gone quite right.
Yes.
You might want to do it under a Venus retrograde, is to fix it up. But, it is really, you don't move ahead with the things of Venus with that. And the things of Venus are, maybe relationships. Yeah, you want to put a hold on something. You may want to backtrack. You may want to exit backwards out of a relationship. Like, excuse me, bye. Leaving the room backwards, shuffling backwards. You don't want to. You want to be careful about your money. Especially, if actually, interestingly enough, especially Pisces and Aries, I would say need to be careful about their money.
Yeah.
With Venus retrograde.
Yeah.
I think I've had my pocket picked with a Venus retrograde.
Okay.
So all of those things, it's the trivial, like your wallet, literally the coins in your purse, to the deep, as in your
Mm,
relationships with others or your value system, maybe
mm.
being readjusted.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good time to Venus retrograde to think about your value system. What is it I value?
Yeah, I mean, like a retro, that's the best way to use a retrograde, isn't it? To turn inwards and to kind of, it may be sometimes with relationships, someone goes quiet on you during that, but it's a good time for you to sort of be quiet and reflect and review and reassess. Again, we've got these rewords with the retrogrades. For Aries and Libra, this is while Venus is in Aries, this turning point. It may be about wondering or reflecting what you want when it comes to love and a relationship. And rather than kind of leaping in and doing something about it, it's actually a time to sit back and mull it over, and take your time with it.
Um,
So
I,
yeah.
I just think it's worth pointing out, and I actually think this is important. Um, there's going to be an eclipse at the end of March at 9 degrees of Libra, right? So that's
Nine Aries, 9 degrees Aries.
9 degrees Aries. I mean,
Mm.
wait, yes, it is. It's 9 degrees Aries, isn't it?
March the 29th. Yeah,
March the
it's in
29th.
Aries month. Yeah.
So it's exactly on this point
Yeah.
where Venus is.
Yes.
So I suspect that certain relationships are coming to an end,
Mm,
for some people, or
mm,
something like that. There are things that are coming to an end, and with Mars turning direct, so it's like ruling over this eclipse, and it's ruling over Venus. This Venus with those and this focus at 9 degrees of Libra Aries, it's the end of this eclipse cycle, right? So we've had 18 months or
yeah.
so of the Libra Aries eclipses. This is the last one. So
Mm,
there may be really something that's being finished off in this month and next
yeah.
month. So the end
Yeah.
of February, beginning of March to the end of March. So right up
Mm,
to the very end. It feels like wrapping something up.
mm,
So, and it may be, like the end of contract, for example.
mm,
It may not
mm,
be like a heart relationship. It may be a business relationship.
mm.
But I really think that you can consider it under the Venus retrograde and you can finish it under the Venus retrograde. It may be time to withdraw from a contract that you no longer want to be part of.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, as you say, the eclipse next month will be at 9 degrees Aries. I mean, Venus turns retrograde at 10 Aries. Mercury also in the mix, because Mercury, I think we should let's take that one off, and Mercury also turns retrograde at 9 degrees Aries.
Yeah.
Venus is, I think this, I don't know how rare this is, but Mercury and Venus, they're gonna have a double retrograde. I mean, Mercury's retrograde from the 15th of March onwards and will turn direct before Venus. But they both are at the same points in the zodiac. They're both at 9, 10 Aries, they turn retrograde. And they both turn direct to 24, 26 degrees Pisces.
Yeah.
So they're very, as well, these degrees are where the eclipses are as well. The eclipse on March 14th, 24 Virgo, and the eclipse on March 29th, 9 degrees Aries. So there's who's being connected, who's pulled into this. It's like there's a few people talking or changing their mind or changing direction. It's quite an interesting little interplay, isn't it, between
I think
the planets going on.
it's the planets, and then there's the eclipse that I mean, that finishing eclipse and the starting eclipse, if you know what I mean. So
Yes.
the one on the 14th of March, which we haven't really mentioned yet,
Mm.
is a total lunar eclipse. It's quite a big one.
Yeah.
And it's at 23 Virgo, so it's actually very close. That's why it's a total lunar eclipse. When it's total, it means it's very close to the nodes.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at just to sort of make it more complex, but I'm just still looking at that new moon and at the new moon in February, Mercury is at 23 Virgo. Sorry, 23 Pisces. So everything is being bound in together.
Mm,
And
mm,
and I definitely feel that there's an ending and a beginning to do with these eclipses,
Mm,
right? And it's
mm,
worth thinking about what you want to withdraw from. And it's possibly an agreement that you made. You may have to break a contract. And that
yeah.
may be an emotional contract or a physical one, not physical, a literal one, the one that
Yeah.
you actually signed. Um,
Mm,
and it feels to me like agreements are going to be unmade. I think, speaking internationally, I think that we're going to see withdrawing from international agreements with this thing. There's
yeah.
going to be a lot of people changing their mind and saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. And
Mm,
that makes people feel, it may make people feel like, who can I trust?
mm,
What can I rely on? And I
yeah.
honestly think you do have to be careful with that right now.
Yeah. I'm going to put up the other chart for those who are on watching. So we've got it there. This the eclipse on 14th of March. I mean, there's but the weird thing with this astrology is it is a bit of a muddle and a mess, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a muddle and a mess. So I agree that there will be these, I think there may be quite sudden
Yeah.
changes going on, and really look at these key dates when the planets turn retrograde, when the new moon is, the lunar eclipses, because those are likely to be pivotal dates. Notice what happens. Notice, what events take place then. But I still think because a double retrograde going on from mid-March, actually some things will not get sorted out until April. I mean, Mercury only turns direct on April 7th and then Venus on April 13th. So also at the same time, it may be that you just have to play a waiting game. On some level, it may be about sitting and waiting, and things will only get resolved moving into April. I mean, it could go either way. That's the thing, couldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my feeling, I think that you might want to withdraw. I definitely
Yeah.
think that from something,
Yeah.
um, and you need to look at the fine print
Mm,
because it's this Mercury comes in and says, look at the fine print, have a really close look at what you've signed up to.
mm,
Be really cautious. I would, speaking of fine print, I definitely would not get into any contracts
yeah.
during this period. And if I
Yeah.
did, I wouldn't trust them completely.
Mm, mm,
Things will not play out as people think.
mm,
However, it's quite a good time for taking another look at the contract that you're in. This is so Venus turns retrograde on the 2nd and Mercury turns retrograde on the 15th, and you have the eclipse in the middle there on the 14th. So
mm,
this is a very messy time.
mm,
Um, and it may feel like everything's falling apart or things are, like the wheels are coming off.
mm, mm.
Um, but it's okay. Just don't expect the wheels to be on. If you know what I mean. You may have to spend some time by the side of the road with a jack, with the car on what's it called? Is it the car on the jack? I've
On the
never changed
jack, yeah, it's a jack, isn't it?
with the car on the jack.
Mm,
Especially with the Mercury retrograde. Um,
mm, mm.
and with the eclipse, it's like you have a blowout and you stop and you need to stop and consider.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
literally for Cancer Capricorn, it could be, transport problems, car problems. Um, you
yeah.
may literally have, no car, or I don't know, the commute changes,
I,
something like that.
what do you think about traveling around that eclipse?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Venus is already retrograde. Mercury is just on the verge of turning retrograde, and you get the eclipse. I mean, I don't choose eclipse dates to travel if I can help it, because things are hidden. You can't see things. I don't like traveling on eclipses personally. I don't like launching anything on eclipses. I'd rather wait a while and see, what landscape is revealed when the light comes back. Um, if you are traveling, then be super flexible. Again, it's that double check everything. I mean, sometimes people say to me, "Oh, should I travel on a Mercury retrograde?" Yes, I do. But you give yourself plenty of time. You double check your visa, your passport. You double check the times of things. So you have to be a bit super vigilant if you're traveling under a Mercury retrograde. Um, But
Have
yeah,
you?
no, I wouldn't choose it to travel if you don't have to. I wouldn't
I
with
wouldn't either.
mid
And
months.
I just would also point out that communications, oh, what tangled webs we weave. Um,
Mm,
the next, for the whole of March, really, I would
mm,
be caught, I would think about what I say, and think about what I'm doing, quite carefully because it could come back to bite you.
mm,
And some people will just be going blah and sort of blurting because it's Mercury starts retrograde in Aries and then goes into Pisces. This is quite a messy place to have that retrograde. It goes from like um the you know Mercury in Aries can speak without thinking, or think speak before it thinks.
yeah, it's motor mouth, isn't it?
It
Mercury
is
and
motor
Aries.
mouth, exactly. And
Mm,
sometimes, that's very kind of precise on target words, but sometimes those words can be quite cruel.
mm.
So I would be quite careful with my language during this Mercury retrograde season that's coming up.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
and because it's so entangled with an eclipse, it's like, what are you eclipsing with your words?
Mm.
Again, especially interestingly enough for Capricorn, um, your what are your words, and also for Aries. Um,
And Aquarius, actually, because
well,
Aries is Aquarius's communication sector. Yeah, I'd be super careful on social media during this time.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
that,
super careful. What you get involved in. And don't do things spontaneously, impulsively. Take a step back.
well,
Um,
and also, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
mm,
Definitely. And even, as we get into even from that Mercury Jupiter mutual reception, which we're in up until Mercury goes into Aries, which is what date does it go into Aries? I'm
it's at the
just,
beginning of March, 3rd of March. It goes into Aries.
yeah, up until then, even, in that mutual reception thing, you need to be a bit careful about your kind of what
Mm,
you're saying in public, so to speak.
mm, mm,
And also suspicious of what you're hearing.
yeah,
Just take a step back, pull back, and look at the bigger picture because you're also going to be overwhelmed by detail. That's a Jupiter and Gemini thing. All these
yeah.
little things are happening, and then they're hiding the bigger thing.
Mm.
And
And
that's
also, I was just going to say this lunar eclipse it's a mirror of the eclipse that took place in September 2024, September 18th, 2024. It's at the same degrees. So also just look what's coming full circle since then. I know a Virgo had quite serious health issues at that time, but it's looking likely that those, health issues are going to be resolved. And the Virgo, the first house is about the physical body, but it's taken that amount of time. So it could be also something coming to completion or getting resolved from back in September. But again, be patient because it may not just be doof, done.
yeah. I mean, this is a really, really huge eclipse. Actually,
It
the more
is.
you look at the chart, the more
Mm,
intense it becomes because, first of all, it's total, which is pretty exciting in itself.
mm,
Second of all, the moon is in Virgo, 23 degrees, but it's opposite to the sun, obviously at 23 degrees Pisces. And that sun is in a sandwich between Saturn at 22 Pisces and Neptune at 29 Pisces.
mm,
Neptune is making a conjunction to the nodes, to the north node. So it's these big, big, major, huge planets leaving that are on the exit route out of
mm,
Pisces are
yep.
having this eclipse,
Mm,
right? They're doing the eclipse. They're participating in the eclipsing of the moon. Now, if I were going um really out in left field, I would say, that is some certain amount of quite harsh energy, not Neptune so much, but there seems to be, but the Saturn is so close to the sun with this eclipse. This is
mm,
very strong masculine energy eclipsing lunar
mm.
energy,
Yeah,
pulling
and
pulling the light of the moon out.
it's someone for me. It's that Saturn. I mean, the Saturn is pivotal in this. I think because it's
Absolutely.
and the Saturn is often it's called the enemy of the lights. The sun and moon are the lights. It's called the enemy. It rules the star signs opposite where the sun and moon sit in the zodiac rulership. So, Saturn is the opposite of the light. So to me, it looks like someone is laying down the law at this. There could be an authority figure stepping in and really, stopping you being who you want to be, shining your light. So, I mean, I do think it's be careful on this eclipse too. Be
Yeah,
careful.
I agree. I don't think it's I think it's interesting
Mm,
and something because it's a full moon, right? This is the culmination of something. It's something coming to fruition usually at a full moon.
mm,
And it may be something, maybe something is stopped from fruiting at this point, stopped
mm,
from emerging, not allowed to emerge. The signs involved are Pisces and Virgo, essentially.
mm-hmm,
But that does affect everyone, and including, sorry, Gemini and Sagittarius. So it may be about relationships, but because that often is with eclipses, right?
mm,
But it may actually also be about sort of relationships at work. Like, I
mm,
think that people may be, for example, losing their jobs, right?
mm. Well, it's a third party stepping in, isn't it? And
Yeah,
almost saying no or putting a limit in place or an obstacle or a block. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it could well be, things coming to an end.
yeah. It
A reality check, things coming to an end during this eclipse.
and it may be something that started with the Saturn going into Pisces a couple of years ago, or it may be a much longer term thing that started
Mm.
in 2010 that is
Mm-hmm.
definitely reaching an ending. And it's part of the
Mm,
big endings that
mm,
we're seeing as Neptune and Saturn move into Pisces and start at zero Aries later this year.
mm,
And this is a pivotal moment, I think,
mm,
in their exit. So it's like, okay, we've got one last thing to do. What is it that we need to finish off? Now, the good side of this is that it feels like a completion to me. So
mm-hmm,
some of you will be completing that massive project that you started 15 years ago, or, finally achieving a kind of foundation somehow that you
mm-hmm,
started a long, long time ago.
mm,
So, for example, like with Scorpios, it may be the completion of a creative project that comes around this eclipse.
mm,
It's like you're like, finally, forget it. I'm putting this aside. Or it may be, for example, that your child, um, this is Scorpio and Scorpio, right, that your child achieves, something really huge.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm,
they may get the big part, Sally. I'm just thinking about that,
mm-hmm,
or
mm.
get that job at
Yeah.
last, or
And something perhaps that feels daunting.
yeah,
I mean, it could feel daunting. It could be like you've really got to pull on your big girl pants at this point, and or take someone on. Yeah, I see. I mean, interestingly, I'm doing. I mean, I'm away for a week. I'm going away for the week. I've just realised on this. So and I'm going away into the countryside. So I will be doing a switching off. So I'm doing what I often do on Mercury retrograde. I mean, I don't think I planned it that way because it was my sister. That it was her dates. But yeah, I'm going to be taking a week out and detoxing from news and stopping and slowing down. So as
mm,
well, if life does feel daunting and overwhelming for people, use the Mercury retrograde, use this double retrograde phase to take a step back, slow down, switch off.
mm. I think a lot of people, because things are happening so fast with the outer planets, um, I think some people just are not going to be able to, and that's also part of the difficulty with these
Mm-hmm.
retrogrades, is that you
Mm,
can't switch off because there's just so much detail to deal with.
mm,
And it feels like sort of paperwork and things like that you're having to scrabble around and get your possessions together, whether those are virtual ones, or real
Mm,
ones.
mm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I quite like this sort of idea that there is a bit of a sense of completion on this
Yes.
eclipse, or getting ready for the because what happens next with the eclipses is that then they are going to be in Virgo and Pisces from now on. We have one
Hmm.
more at the end of March, which we'll be talking about in the next episode,
Yeah.
um, in Aries.
Mm.
Or did I say, is it? Yeah, it's in
Yes.
Aries. I keep
It's
on
in
thinking it's
Aries.
Aries. Yeah, it's in Aries. It's at the
Mm,
9-degree Aries. And
mm,
if you look at this chart for this total lunar eclipse,
mm.
um, the one on the 14th of March, Mercury is at 9 degrees Aries on
Yeah.
this eclipse. So it's again, these same points are
Mm,
pinging. But what
mm.
happens next is that then we're going to move into a long series of eclipses over the next 18 months, which are in Pisces and Virgo,
Yeah.
Pisces and Virgo,
Yeah.
back and forth. Mostly in Virgo this year, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. Um, I almost kind of, because if we're kind of saying what's this month about, I don't actually have a kind of, well, this is what to do this month.
mhm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like to give the sort of wrapping up with advice on how to deal with the month ahead. I think it needs a softly approach at times. And I think at other times you need to be a bit feisty. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I feel quite
uh,
conflicted about the best way to move forward in Pisces season, if I'm honest.
well, I don't think there is one way to deal with this.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
There are multiple factors to take into account.
Mm,
My advice is be cautious,
yeah.
but use the opportunity to withdraw from any contracts that you don't want to be part of anymore. And
Mm,
that includes like friendships. Okay.
mm, mm,
Um, Maybe especially for certain signs, or, if you're on a course that you don't want to do anymore.
yeah.
For example, you're studying, I don't know, Chinese, and you decide you don't want to do that anymore. That would be like Leo, or um, Aquarius. You might not want to be on studying a particular thing anymore, for example. It can be that small of a contract. It doesn't have to be this huge,
Yeah.
soul contracts or anything like that. It can be small things.
Yeah.
Pay attention. So that would be another thing. Use it. Think about if there's anything you want to withdraw from, anything you want to leave, anything you want to get out of, because we
Yeah.
all have times in our lives where we need to get out of things that we've committed to, that we
Yeah.
shouldn't have committed to. And to me, this is like all about that.
Yeah.
Getting out of some commitments that are going to hold, that you think will hold you back.
And I think the other thing for me is take care of one another.
Yeah.
That's the Virgo Pisces axis as well. It's not just about self, it's about other people and being sensitive to others and being kind to others as well. So
Oh, that's sweet. But there's something else I want to say, which is that the other piece of advice I would give people about this month is pay attention to details,
yeah.
right? The details matter.
Mm,
You can't sort of and there's this conflict between the largeness of Pisces and the big oversight that we tend to have, and the detail
mm,
orientation of Virgo and Gemini. And Virgo and Gemini actually have a point. Maybe you should be paying attention to that detail.
mm,
And Mercury retrograde is suggesting, yeah, actually, yeah, it would be a good idea to pay attention to the detail
yeah.
and go back and look over things and take them apart and dissect them before. And maybe you need to, it's like you need to take the car engine. Okay, we're back on the side of the road, right? And it turns out that you actually need to take the entire engine of the car apart in order to see how it actually works. And
Mm.
that's maybe would be my advice, is allow that taking things apart to happen, see how it works, because you're going to be putting it back together again. And you're not going to make a car, you're going to make an airplane this time, um, out of the same parts later in
Okay.
the year.
Okay. On that note,
Go forth and to start designing blueprints for your airplane.
okay. All right. Well, I hope everybody that's been helpful for you. It's a weird month coming up, really. Quite a weird month coming up. But yeah, take care.
See you next time, and
See you next time.
Don't forget to listen to our in between ones.
Yep.
Astrology Talk Investigates. Okay,
Please
ciao
do.
ciao.
Bye.
Bye.